Alright lads, day 2. Let's get into it. Now, as you'll recall, we have dealt with all of the other briefings and read the news. So, there's no point in pissing about. Let's get into it. Campaign finance bill, eh? The Grand National Assembly of the Republic of Suzerain at the first session begun and held at the city of Holsord. Electoral Campaign Finance Bill. The criteria for the allocation of public funds shall no longer be according to the number of votes won in a general election by a political party. The new criteria shall be a proportion of seats won by a political party in the Assembly. Political parties shall receive an annual amount of 500,000 ren per member of Assembly. This results in a doubling of the USP election budget and a slight increase in other parties in the Assembly, while effectively removing all funding from parties that are below the 10% election threshold. Well, here's the dilemma. We have promised the electorate some form of democratic reform, so we should do that. However, signing this bill is a massive blow to our dominance over our opposing party. So, if we believe in the program that we're going to put forward, we need to make sure that we retain political control of the state. It's quite a finely balanced problem. And I think what I'm going to do is veto this one and look for some other concession to make. My hope is that the political backlash in the electorate can be mollified by our friend who controls the media conglomerate. Party Committee report. The Reform Committee reports that any potential change to the Constitution in the direction of the reformists will likely result in strong opposition from the National Front Party. Most members of the United Swordland Party also seem reluctant about supporting such changes. Additionally, the chief strategist of the President, Lucien Gallarda, reports that the Solist politicians and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court are willing to talk about a potential alliance. Pardon. So taking those point by point, the Reform Committee reports that any potential change to the Constitution in the direction of the reformists will likely result in strong opposition from the National Front Party. Well, that's to be expected. But will that opposition result in political gains? If it causes political gains for the Front Party, remember we want to balance our competitors so that they have neutral or so that they have equal ownership of the Assembly. We're not supporting the National Front Party because we believe in their ideals. We're supporting the National Front Party because we want them to eat into the Liberals' lead. Now, it might seem unlikely that people in the Liberal coalition will skip across to the National Front coalition, and my sharp-eyed listeners, that is correct. However, if we bring some of the Liberals onto our side and some of the people from our side depart for the National Front, well, it works about the same. Most members of the United Swordland Party also seem reluctant about supporting such changes. Well, very good, so we've played our hand well. And Galata reports that the Solist politicians and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court are willing to talk about a potential alliance. So everything proceeds apace. We do want a political alliance with the head of the Supreme Court. And remember that they have a strong majority in the Supreme Court. Briefing on the current economic situation. Oof, this is probably not going to look good. I'm really looking forward to when we can establish the economic foreign policy objectives of pardon me, once we can establish the economic forum, and remember that we have strong diplomats, so that we can set up the trade treaties. Oof, I do love a good whiskey and dry, lads. Yeah, so this is all just set up, blah blah blah. Lilius Graf says, Gus, do you really think that such an economically advanced area is more in need of investment than Argenland? Lilius, my interior minister, strode in. She was clad in shades of brown and beige. The only spot of colour is a bright yellow Neurist star on her necklace. Gus followed close behind. Oh, don't be an idiot, Lilius. What about the unemployment crisis the Greater Holsaard and Gilsland regions are going through? These areas are our economic heartland. Oof, it's very heated. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, everybody. What is this debate about? Let's just cut to the chase, shall we? Just a disagreement in internal economic strategy, President Rain. Not sure if we would call it a disagreement, Lilius. Let's begin the presentation. Lilius, could you explain the situation? Could you enlighten me, Gus? Okay, so we have two, what would you call them? Favour showing options and one neutral option. We're going to pick the neutral option. Mostly just because I don't remember exactly which party was, which person was presenting which side of the argument. Yes, I'll move forward with my presentation. Very good, please. Yep, go for it. Wowee. Now, this is a lot of reading here. No point in making an enemy just yet. What happened to the new police station construction in Estord? It got stalled due to a government property boundary issue. I have been meaning to look at it. Classic. Red tape holding up everything. Yeah, if we can trim the red tape, that would definitely be a good thing to do. Remember, we especially want to make sure that our port that has been downgraded can get re-upgraded again, because that's going to be critical for establishing trade flows to the states that are on the left and our right, in the sense that we're oriented towards our primary military foe. I can take a look at this one. Estord needs all the security help it can get. Sure, more time for me to spend on analyses. Okay, he found his slides. There have been some developments about the Swedish Ren losing further value today. We have been trying to stabilise it with the central bank. Okay, that sounds like a bad thing, but actually having a low value currency will mean that other states will be more likely to look for us for the exports that we can send out, rather than for producing their own goods internally. So if we can undercut the industrial development of the other states, that will definitely be worthwhile for us, because remember, we're trying to attract large quantities of investment into the underinvested areas and poverty-stricken areas of our country, which at this point basically seems like all of it. The recession of 51 put enormous pressure on the economy, resulting in the collapse of the value of our currency. The entire situation was a significant cause of concern for our administration. What would you like to know about the current economic situation? Alright, what's our GDP and debt situation? That would be good. What is our unemployment and inflation rate? Yes, we want to know those. What's the status of the recession? Well, really we should have access to all of this information, and we'll have to choose between all of these options. We already know that our economic development is 3 out of 10, and our budget is 3. what our debt situation is not a priority for us because we're going to spend whatever it is. If we have high debt, we're going to spend, and if we have low debt, we're going to spend. What's our GDP? I'm going to assume this is a fair thing of our GDP. What is our unemployment and inflation rate? This seems like something that's more important because our domestic economy is our priority at the moment. What's the status of the recession? Doesn't matter. If there's still a recession, we're going to fix it. And if the recession's already over, great. We're still going to do all of the same things. Unemployment has skyrocketed. It is now at a staggering 16%, and the inflation is at a relative high of 7%. Alright, we do want to bring down that inflation rate because we want to incentivize people to have, or at least we want people to understand that they can do something by saving, right? Because that will, when people are working and putting aside money, it makes them feel good. Now, unemployment is at 16%. That certainly is too high. We're going to try and bring that. We'll try and get all of those people to work if we can. Probably the lower, like the kind of last 5% never really goes away, but that's fine. Unemployment is increasing crime and drug use. That's bad. We need to get people off the streets. Yes, definitely. Inflation isn't helping our average citizen either. Well, I'm glad we see eye to eye, Lilius. Alright, so what's our GDP and debt situation? What's the status of the recession? Okay, great. So we get to look at all of these after all. So let's just go through them from top to bottom then. GDP and debt. The current GDP is 310 billion Suzerain, and the national debt is 427 billion. Alright, so our debt level is essentially 1 year's GDP plus a third. I mean, look around the world today, this is actually not that bad in comparison to where a lot of people are at. It's still hard to fathom that we lost nearly 150 billion in wealth. The past 3 years were tough. Yeah, that hurts. Okay, and what's the status of the recession? Minus 6% in the past year. The average GDP has dropped from 15 to 10 from 1951 to now. Okay, that's very bad. We need to stabilise this number. So let's set a goal of hitting 0% recession. And then once we've done that, then we can think more deeply about how to spin up the wheels. The administration's success depends on our ability to stop the recession. The sooner we can reach GDP growth, the better. Great, let's move on to the economic strategy. Yes, please. As you can see, the situation is alarming, but not everything is negative. The extensive privatisation program of Alfonso left us a large budget surplus, which we can use to stabilise the crisis. Oh, fantastic. We don't even have to borrow. I was perfectly prepared to borrow a lot of money in order to get the investment done so that we could build up a decent GDP 20 years from now, but if we don't even have to do that, that's fantastic. The primary subject we need to settle on is what general pathway we take in our term. Solonomics-based I'm sober, I swear. Nationalisation happened in the 30s, and Alfonso's privatisation began during the end of the 40s. What will our administration focus on? Well, we could nationalise the trains, roads, and river systems and ports in order to up all of the, so that we can just directly spend on all of the infrastructural things. But if we do that, keep in mind that what we're going to do is once they're done, we're just going to sell them at cost to the national industries, the sort of private industries. We need to be careful because too much nationalisation could easily make enemies out of the kind of larger economic actors inside our society. And we don't want to do that because remember, we want them on side so that they participate with our plans for our trade deals. On the other hand, we could privatise things. What are we going to privatise? If there's already been a term of privatisation that is going on, it's really a question of what else is there that can be privatised. We don't need to make back the money because remember, we've got money in the bank. But the fact is that additional privatisation could bring some of the critical parts of the industries, whatever they are, that is currently held in, that is currently nationalised, bring them into a more efficient system. Now, the last thing I really want to do is hurt the people already at the tail end of this recession, which has been horrible for them. However, balancing short-term pain against long-term advantage, we want to choose long-term advantage. The only problem is it's entirely possible that the benefits of the privatisation program will be felt by no one in the short term except the few industries that buy the whatever it is that we privatise, and it's entirely possible that in the long term all of the financial benefits will end up going to that slim sliver of society that always benefits no matter what the economic situation is. One of our main promises was to promote a free market economy to stop the recession. To be frank, I believe it is the only way out of the recession. I still do not support it. Why promote the private sector when we have qualified state-owned enterprises? Because the lack of competition has made them inefficient, and that's exactly right. Very good then. What are the consequences of the free market? Well, I'm assuming that the consequences will be exactly as I've laid out. The more of the economy we control, the better we can manage the recession. That is just a... What did Hayek call it? The path to serfdom? What are the downsides of the planned economy? Well, incredible inefficiency. Humanity in the 20th century is thriving because of the rule of supply and demand. That's just the way that we're going to have to go for. Look at how quickly Lesbia and Arcasia have increased their prosperity by embracing these basic principles. Great, so if they have free market economies and we have a free market economy, then that means that we're likely to align on politico-economic issues, and also they'll have money to spend, and also hopefully there will be minimisation of tariffs in the trade regimes, meaning that we will be able to trade with both of them efficiently, therefore growing all of our GDPs together, and also bring us into closer geopolitical alignment. Essentially, you should be able to see where I'm heading with this by now. We're like the US trying to build NATO, except without the what's the word I'm looking for? Yes, overwhelming military force. Swordland has the potential to do so as well. Why don't we take our potential seriously? Integrating heavily in a market economy would work if we had extensive means of production. Our industry is lacking. Right. The structural problems of Solonomics were going to lead to a recession, according to the predictions of the time anyway. Either way, even if we pick one of the doctrines, we retain the option to make economic choices on a case-by-case basis. Awesome. So I'd rather free the economy and then make exceptions to that than have a centrally planned economy and try and institute free market reforms, every now and then. So that's what we're going to do. Last thing we need is a chaotic economic plan. There is another important point which has a direct impact on our economy: superpowers. Yes, that is a good point, Lilius. We have done well in not aligning ourselves with any one of them. Economically speaking, an isolationist policy overall could only work if we were to reap the benefits of both spheres and their rivalry. This is very dangerous to attempt, but still possible. We must be very cautious. There are schemes being devised about Swordland. We cannot give in to their wants now or in the future, otherwise our country will turn into a pawn. Well, that's exactly right. Swordland will not be controlled by any nations. Check, that is correct. Sol was right all along with his policies. I'm assuming that he's the command and control economy fellow. Still haven't decided if they wish to come with a deal. Time will show if staying neutral will work out. Solonomics. Right, so yeah, cool. So in that case, we don't want Solonomics. We don't want to be controlled by any nations, obviously. Still haven't decided if they wish to come with a deal. I'm assuming that means the other nation states. and therefore I think this makes the right choice for us, because we haven't actually had our diplomatic meet-up yet to figure out if that's the correct move or not. Time will show if staying neutral will work out. Yeah, we don't want to be neutral, we want to be in a military defensive alliance with our major trading partners. A deal that they would surely come out with more profit while our people suffered. Gus Manger says, we don't know that. We should wait and see. With the deals we could get by aligning ourselves with a strong country like Abkhazia, recession would surely end in no time. Well, that is fantastic analysis. Very happy to hear that. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Minister Wishy will be in charge of informing you on those types of foreign policy decisions. We must first decide on our internal economic plan. Simon put forward a legal document outlining the possibilities with both economic doctrines listed. The cabinet members looked at me to think. Solon has planned economy for the boom. False. Let's finish what Alfonso started with the capitalist free market reforms. His path was going to enrich Swordsland. What's in our long-term economic schedule? Would a free market focus bring us stronger allies? Well, now that is a good question. It would make Abkhazia look at our country in a more positive light. They are proponents of the free market economy. The influence Abkhazia has on the world economy is extensive. Our economic strategy should be based on internal reasoning, though. Yes, that's fantastic. All right, let's continue the free market reforms. Oh yeah, a bunch of negotiations and whatever. What's in our long-term economic schedule? Picking a construction company, trade relations, tax reform and privatisation initiatives would be some of them. Sticking to a solid planned economic strategy would be the right call. The 5-year plans were fruitful in the past. Yeah, we're not doing that. Alright, let's move on. What are your final thoughts then, Mr. President? 1. Critical institutions must remain in state control. We must be fully responsible for delivering services. Not keen on that one. We should look at opportunities like privatisation to create financial resources. Well, we already have some money in the bank, so I'm, like a little bit maybe. A market economy doesn't require as much guidance and could help us attract foreign capital. It's hard to fully agree or disagree with these options. All right, we're going now with number 3. If we can get some FDI, foreign direct investment, in our country, oof, that would be fantastic, especially with the low price in our dollar, REN. Yep, that's right. Especially from Abkhazia, President Walker is always interested in expanding the economic zone of ATO. We could secure lucrative investments from capitalist countries. Fantastic, we definitely want to do that. So what will our general economic plan promote? Free market economy, as we promised. That is correct. Lilius, you're about to get fucking fired, mate. Let's see a grin, alright? You can disagree. I just don't want to be surrounded by a bunch of sour mugs. Alright, now that there's clarity on which direction we're heading, I will work on a good plan accordingly. This concludes the meeting. At our next gathering, we'll discuss the upcoming infrastructure investment plan. Oof. Great. Alright, looks like the economy is well sorted. Now, do we want to respond to all of these other things and do the news next? Let's quickly rip through the news and then we'll wrap it up. How about that, lads? Unread newspapers. President vetoes bill. Yes, that's right. And economy meeting held today. We did do that. Lockhaven, freezing temperatures recorded. Not good. Nationalist violence. A man in his 20s has been beaten with baseball bats in a paramilitary style attack in Avery. The man claims to have been attacked because of his ethnic background as an Agno-Sordish citizen. Concerning. What are the actual statistics, though? Can't rely on a single event to declare a policy. Unfair campaign finance bill crushed. And Armadine Industries pioneering electronics. Fantastic. Good. Always keen to see R&D. Nothing in Geopolitico this week. That's my favourite newspaper. Alright. And that is us. See you next time.